Hey losers, welcome back to a new episode here at Zero Loser Studio. So today, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Resident Evil 4, the universally loved and the universally hated. When the first Resident Evil game dropped in 1996, a renaissance of survival horror video games bloomed. We were blessed with games like Silent Hill, Parasite Eve, which I'm gonna need Square Enix to remaster this game pronto. Sure, we've had horror games made prior to the first Resident Evil game, but it didn't just hit the same way Resident Evil did. As time went on and more Resident Evil games were released, Shinji Mikami thought it was time to change the game into a different direction. This time, he wanted more action involved. I mean, video games are always evolving, so it's only natural for developers to want their games to evolve with the times. When the PS2 and GameCube dropped in the early 2000s, we were seeing more action games being developed, like Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, and the Tom Clancy games. More developers were able to do more complex games due to the gen's hardware. Capcom was going to participate in this, but it wasn't an easy development. Resident Evil started development in 2001 and went through a few development hiccups, which actually resulted in creating a different game. The first development was described by Shinji as too cool and too action focused, and he decided to let the team working on the first version turn it into a different game. The game that we got was Devil May Cry, which released in 2001. Resident Evil 4 would go through more development issues, from having supernatural elements to a paranormal villain called the Hookman chase you around a mansion. All of these ideas continuously scrapped. It was like they wanted to find the right story to tell. These continuous changes in development, which caused a few delays, made RE fans a bit unsettled. But Capcom made sure to blast ads everywhere and continuously hype up Resident Evil 4 and basically try to calm down any anxiety about the game. Finally, on January 11th, 2005, the final version of Resident Evil 4 was released exclusively on the GameCube. When RE4 was released, it was met with universal acclaim. It surely was different from the previous titles. Capcom ditched the fixed camera angles for the third-person over-the-shoulder perspective. It was such an impactful change that for the next few years, a lot of games like Dead Space would use over-the-shoulder perspective. As stated numerous times, Capcom wanted to focus on more actions in their titles, so they introduced the infamous QuickTime events. QuickTime events were mostly used during cutscenes to keep players on their toes. Usually when a cutscene happens, that's normally the time for you to sit down your controller and take a small break and watch a little cinematic event. Nay, nay, said Capcom. There are no damn breaks in this game. Many people thought these QuickTime events were really lazy and annoying, and honestly, I'm one of those people. The infamous boulder scene, no, not this scene, this scene, was really unnecessary. Smashing buttons so Leon won't get crushed by a boulder felt really campy. It really took me out of the immersion of the game, and that's where most of the complaints are when it comes to these QuickTime events. Like, imagine just, fighting a horde of zombies and you're all anxious and you're just like, oh my god, that was so close. And next thing you know, you have to smash the A button to run away from a boulder. Like, it just felt out of place. And unfortunately, a lot of these QuickTime events are like that in this game. Another element Capcom changed was the enemies. Instead of your usual dead brain zombies and mutated creatures, we have Spanish villagers, which are called the ganados, that are infected with the Plagas virus. They have more personality to them, like shouting at you in Spanish to constantly remind you that you are in fact in Spain. They also carry weapons and throw them at you. In that way, they feel more of a threat and keep you on your feet. Of course, as the game progresses, you have different enemy types pop up, like the cultists in the castle. These Freddy Krueger looking dudes called Garradors? Garradors? I don't know. I'm Spanish, but not like that. And of course, the most terrifying enemy of the entire game, the Regenerators. These things suck, and the sound that they make has been burned into my mind. No matter what you do, even if you shoot their arm, legs, or whatever, they'll still keep regrowing their limbs and come at you. Of course, unless you find the infrared scope, and then, these bad guys aren't really that bad, but still really creepy. The enemy designs in this Resident Evil game aren't too far-fetched because, let's face it, Resident Evil is known to have really weird and really cool enemy designs. But in the older games, the enemies were more horror inclined. In the Resident Evil 4 games, the Ganados, they're actually armed with chainsaws. The cultists have rocket launchers. It just feels like it's not fear-inducing anymore. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. You're at war, if that makes sense. You go from zombies to having dudes with rocket launchers. it's not scary, it's just funny at that point. Another major change and departure from the old series is the inventory system. Yes, the days of having only 6 slots for inventory and needing to use an inventory box is over. Instead, you have a briefcase where you can store your weapon and eggs. Yes, you can keep eggs in your inventory for health, or you can throw them, whatever you want to do, I guess. To some, that was the best decision that Capcom could make, but to a lot of survival horror fans, it really took away the strategy of having to conserve your ammo and health items. A lot of the older Resident Evil games are known to have such limited inventory space to keep you on your toes and to keep you focused. Do I shoot my gun at the zombie, or do I pick up this health item? If I pick up this health item, I won't be able to have space for ammo. If I pick up this ammo, I won't be able to have space for this health. And sometimes you have to sacrifice some items in your inventory slot for important items like keys and other puzzle items. But now you have a briefcase that not only has a bigger inventory space, you can actually upgrade it when you buy the upgrade from the merchant, which, by the way, he is my favorite character. I mean, look at him. I love him.
Got something that might interest you.
Also, I just want to rant for a little bit about the settings in Resident Evil 4. I promise you, it makes sense to this video. Like in RE1, we have the Spencer Mansion, which leads to an underground lab. Okay, makes sense. RE2 takes place at the Raccoon City Police Department, the sewers, and then another lab. Makes sense. RE3, same thing. It takes place in Raccoon City, and the park, and the police department, and the clock tower. Makes sense. Veronica is a bit different, but there is still a lab involved in a mansion. Again, makes sense. But in RE4, we're in Spain. I mean, the story is that the president's daughter does get kidnapped and taken to Spain, but it just feels so random. Like, it was a massive jump. And the settings are so weird. Like, we go from a village to a castle, and in a castle you ride a roller coaster to a lava pit, and then we go to an island. It's just all over the place if you think about it. It's kind of ridiculous and really takes away the horror element when you have such sudden jumps of different settings. I still can't get over the fact that there's a roller coaster inside the castle. Like, why? Who built that? I would like to have a conversation with the architect. Anyways, because of Capcom's relentless journey of needing to be relevant, they release hot-ass messes like Operation Raccoon City, RE5, which is only fun when you're playing with another friend, and RE6, which is a little bit more enjoyable when you're also playing with a friend, but still a hot-ass mess. The need to implement action has unfortunately made them lose sight of what made Resident Evil an iconic game series. So I understand the resentment towards Resident Evil 4, but that doesn't mean that Resident Evil 4 doesn't deserve its roses. In my opinion, I think Resident Evil 4 is a perfect blend of action and horror. Please do not come at my neck. And of course, there are other people who disagree and think that RE4 is what ended the survival horror genre. Capcom removed itself from its roots in the name of change and business strategy. You gotta sell your games. I mean, many people think it's a good thing. Like I stated previously, the settings with the other 4 RE games, you know, you have the mansion, the lab, same thing in the other games. So, I mean, I get it, that is pretty redundant. So how many more games are we gonna have where it takes place in a house or in a city and then we're led to a lab? It gets boring. And also, running the same idea over and over again is going to run your business to the ground. You have to renovate yourself if you want to stay in business. It's just, that's a fact. It is what it is, unfortunately. So, did RE4 change the survival horror game genre? Yes, it did. Because of the release of RE4, everybody fell in love with it, and a lot of game developers wanted to copy the same idea. I mean, I'm not mad. We were blessed with wonderful games like Dead Space, Fear, which if you haven't played Fear, that's a great game. It's actually pretty scary. And of course, The Last of Us. Every time I think of a good horror action game blend, those 3 titles are the 3 games that pop into my mind. Like, if you haven't played those 3 games, do it. It's so good. They're so good. Speaking of which, I actually do enjoy horror action games. I still get scared. I mean, that could just be because I'm a scaredy cat and I easily get scared by video games sometimes, but I like the idea of, you know, shooting and running around and stuff exploding while honestly being afraid. It's just like, it's a weird experience. I really like it. But of course, you know, you can go overboard like RE5 and Chris punching a boulder. I don't know. I feel like if you're going to mesh those 2 genres, it has to be a good blend because you can mess it up. I think RE4 is a perfect example that you can diversify gaming and you 100% can mix 2 genres of games. So props to RE4, y'all did that. What do you think? Do you think that RE4 really ruined survival horror? Do you think RE4 made horror better? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. What are your memories of Resident Evil 4? Your thoughts, opinions. Let's start a conversation down below. Anyways, losers, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.